Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Global Goddess Fest, a week-long virtual festival to inspire, activate, and connect female leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives worldwide. So I'm super excited to have you here. Today we have Shannon Confair tuning in from Pennsylvania. So she is an amazing brand photographer. The work that she does is usually with online influencers and local leaders to help them create their unforgettable brand. And when you see the photos that she's creating and helping people, just relax and be seen in, she does amazing work. And when she's not working with these rock stars all around the US, she's a mom to 3 incredible kids. And Shannon and I met, she was hosting a women's retreat out here in California. And I got invited to lead a portion of it and do sound and music. And so at this retreat, the space, Shannon, that you were holding was just so beautiful. And I could already see how you were able to really make the women feel comfortable in their own skin. So that's why I wanted to bring you on here. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Rae. And just to speak to what you offered at the retreat, it was transformational and incredible, and I've never experienced anything like it. So can't wait for the next one, because you'll definitely be coming back.
Yes, let's do it. Awesome. And so I wanted to let's just dive into maybe sharing. So we're going to be talking a lot about bold visibility and showing up and really allowing yourself to be seen. But I'd love to first hear a little bit about your background story and how you've gotten into this work.
Absolutely. Well, as far as my career goes, I work with women and I help them to be seen in a really big way. And that is a struggle for all of us. I mean, it doesn't matter how far advanced you are in your career or if you're just starting out, we all have these hang-ups that make us want to shrink back and not be bold and not be visible. And, I've just come to realize it doesn't serve the world around us. And as far as I go, I come from, I just left an emotionally abusive marriage of 15 years. And living in that for so long, it just kind of instilled in me, you're never good enough, or you're too much. And I hear that from a lot of women, whether that's, there's voices in their head from childhood or past relationships. A lot of times we feel like, who am I to be out here in the world doing big things? What will people think of me? Especially family and friends. If we're starting a new venture and we want to be visible and seen in a big way, that usually holds a lot of people back. The other thing that comes up is, what if I fail? What if I try to do this big thing and I'm putting myself out there? What if I fail? Those are 3 of the biggest, most common hangups I hear around being visible, and I face them myself. I preach it all the time to my clients, but I still struggle with it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so common for a lot of us, the work that we've fallen into, especially when we come into kind of this lifestyle business that's really unique to our own life experience. We usually fall into teaching and sharing about our biggest struggles. And so it's an interesting balance because, I think we're always growing and evolving. And so as we're kind of still moving through these and then bringing the other women that maybe are just a few steps behind along for the ride, I think it's so important to also have that authenticity to say hey, I'm still dealing with this. And this is kind of what I'm working on now. So do you see that when you're working with someone and doing a photo shoot, how do you help them relax into their visibility?
Yeah, well, when I'm working with women, usually I've done a significant portion of strategy with them ahead of time. So they're showing up, they're really comfortable with me already. Mm-hmm. And I'm just very aware of, again, we all face this, we all have these same, mindset blocks and body issues. And so it's my job to show up and help them feel amazing and to bring out the essence of who they are. And I see that, again, it's not just the people who are just starting out. When I'm working with these very successful online entrepreneurs, I'm hearing the same thing from them too, and the same struggles. And I really want people to understand that, because I know when I was first starting in my career and I saw all of these women killing it in the online world, I felt like I put them on a pedestal. I put them here and I put myself down here, you know? And once I got to work with them and know them, I realized they're just like me. Like, I'm just like everybody else, you know? So for anybody watching, I want you to hear that loud and clear. You're not the only one struggling with wanting to be visible and with those hangups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's a cool thing that we're able to kind of start to grasp more and more, is this like sisterhood movement of really not having just like one woman like charging the way and then everyone else following behind, but actually really like holding hand in hand and taking steps together. And that's kind of a big focus that we have on the Global Goddess Fest, is how can this be a win-win-win, you know, for everyone's visibility and education and inspiration to just take it to the next level. So I love that you are sharing about that. And so when you're working with women, like, what is that process like before you start the photo shoot?
Well, I do branding, photography, and brand strategy. So I help people build their personal brands. So it starts with a vision. Like, vision is number one. I actually, I have something called the 3 C's. So it's personal clarity, client clarity, and business clarity. And we always start with, what's the vision for your life? What's your story? You know, what makes you unique? How do other people see you? How do you want to be seen? And in that first step of working together, that's where a lot of these blocks are brought up. I get to know them intimately. I get to know their story. And then we get to choose how they want to move forward. You know, you don't have to stay stuck in those patterns. And I'm not, like, I've worked with brilliant mindset coaches. I'm not a mindset coach myself, but I know enough to help people through it. So I would say step one for people is getting really clear on what you want your life to look like, how you want to feel, what you want to do, like what, you know, how you want to grow personally, and then choosing actions that align with all of those goals and with how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And what's like the biggest struggle that you see? Like, what is the, like, you know, over working with all these women, like, what is that thing that is always just like that point where it's like, okay, are we going to do it, or are we not? Like, where are we at?
Honestly, okay, so as far as photo shoots, a lot of times it comes down to, I want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like, what I want people to do is ask, like, go down another question, like, why? Like, why are you afraid to be seen as who you are right now? Because who you are right now is brilliant and beautiful, and you're radiant, you know, like, and I want to bring that out of you. So why is that holding you back? The other big thing I see is just this imposter syndrome. It comes back to, well, who am I to do this? Who am I to put these photos out there? Who am I to show up as a leader? You know, because we think we're not good enough, or we think we don't really know what we're talking about because other people clearly do. And they're all just falsehoods that we are allowing our brains to, you know, take over, and all these negative thoughts. So once you can recognize those thoughts, dig deeper. Why am I worried about what people think? Ask why, until you get to that root. And then you'll realize, like, oh, that's actually the problem. It's just manifesting as this other thing. And then you can really deal with it head on.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And I'd love to hear a little bit about, like, more about your journey. And so you went through this divorce, and, you know, you went through your personal journey. When, like, were you always doing like brand work? Were you always doing photography? And like, how did that, like, your personal story start to align with what you're doing professionally?
It's a great question. So I've been a photographer for the past 12 years or so. Started out with weddings and portraits. And then to make a long story short, I moved to a new area. My business wasn't growing, and I learned all about branding at that point. Branded myself, created this personal brand, niched down in a market, really honed in on who my ideal clients were, doubled my business that year without spending any money. I was in all the wedding venues I wanted to be in, because at that time, that's what I focused on. And then realized, like, this works, you know, so I wanted to help other people do that. So I just naturally started helping other women build their businesses that way, and then decided to let go of everything else and niche down into the personal branding space in 2015. So that's the professional aspect of my life. And as far as everything else, you know, being in this abusive relationship, it wasn't always this way. I became a very resilient person, and I had to learn that, no matter what my circumstance was, I had to have joy and peace within myself. That wasn't going to come from an outside source for me or for anyone. We always think it's outside of us. It always comes from within. And when I started doing mindset work and I started working with coaches, it was really transformational, because I learned that it starts in my own mind. It's my thoughts. It's not my circumstances that create my reality. So if you can recognize the thoughts, that's why I always say, ask yourself why, recognize those thoughts, choose a better thought, instead of saying, who am I to do this? Who are you not to do this? Because if you're not doing this, you're not serving the people that you were put on this earth to serve. And I wholeheartedly believe that. Yeah. And even recently, I've been struggling with visibility again. It comes back and it comes back, and it is just this thing you have to fight all the time. I get into a groove, I do really good, something goes wrong or something in my personal life happens, I fall off the bandwagon, and then it's really hard to jump back in. Even showing up today for this interview was difficult for me. And I'm used to doing this. I've done this before. I like talking to people. It's no sweat off my back, but I've really struggled with showing up today.
Mm-hmm. And so in that struggle, what made you get here and be like, all right, I'm doing it?
A couple of things. So number one, I came back to my vision. What am I put on this earth to do? Who am I meant to serve? What do I want my life to look like? What actions do I have to take to get there? And this is one of those things, and this is my way of serving women and sharing my story. And hopefully even one person will hear this and it'll spark something within them, that they're able to show up in a bigger way. So I take it off of myself and I put it onto, who is this for? And that makes it so much better, because if it's not about me, I'll help other people all day and night, Also, I've learned, I just have to boss my feelings around and just do it. Whether I feel like it or not, sometimes you just have to do it. And once you get into motion with even little things, you build a momentum, and it just helps you to keep going and growing in a bigger way.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes, when I'm working with clients, those questions of okay, big vision and what steps do I need to get there? And, basically everything you ask yourself to get onto this call this morning. Sometimes my clients can take a really long time answering those. And so I love this idea, and this is what I work with them on, is just make a quick decision. Just what's in your heart right now. It doesn't have to stick. It doesn't have to be the same answer that you would give me tomorrow, but how can you get confident in just sharing your visibility of your now and what's present and what's true for you. And so I love that idea of even in just a quick morning when you're getting ready and maybe thinking, oh, maybe I can call and maybe I'm not feeling good. We can create so many stories to get ourselves out of these situations, right? And how can we actually just quickly boom, boom, boom. Okay, well, what am I doing? What am I serving? Okay. And you can literally do that in a minute, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. And these are just such powerful questions that you can just start asking yourself and getting into a routine of just having them really in the forefront of your mind. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, I used to struggle with that, and I still do sometimes, because I'm well, what if I change my mind and this isn't what I want, And then I'm well, then you create a new vision, But I allowed that to hold myself back for a long time from even creating a vision. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I wanted to say about all that when you were talking is I play the worst case scenario game with myself. So we make these things so much bigger in our heads than they need to be. So I'll ask myself when making a decision or deciding to show up, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, so what if I put this huge goal out there publicly and I fail? So what? What if somebody does think poorly of me? So what? It's just the worst case. What's the absolute worst thing that could happen? Could somebody die that I love if I do this thing? If the answer is maybe, then I probably won't do it, Yeah. Other than that, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, so everyone that's watching, I hope you're writing these tips down. You can always pause and go back. There's been such amazing really concise nuggets of exactly what you can ask yourself in these times of that you're being tested in your visibility, whether that means showing up and doing a one-on-one interview, or it means getting on stage and talking to, a room full of people. So I think the same feeling, no matter where the size is or where you're at, in sharing yourself online or in person, these are things that you're going to always move through and become more authentic and more of yourself in who you're sharing. And maybe you can speak on that a little bit too, is like how to kind of take off the mask of trying to be someone else to not really like show what's actually going on or who you actually are, and how that can like hold you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I can speak to the opposite almost, because if you show up in an inauthentic way, people are going to know. Like, that's when people know. If you show up as this persona of perfection, which doesn't exist, people can smell that, and it's not like they can't relate to you at that point. You have to be relatable. So I let my scars show. I share my story. It's not fun, and it sometimes feels uncomfortable. But I do it anyways, because that's who I am, and that's my background, and that's made me who I am today. And I'm okay with that, because I like who I am today, and I wouldn't be this person if it wasn't for what I've gone through in my life. So I would just encourage you, again, it comes back to too, like, who could this message reach? Like, if I'm real, who can I help by being real online, and I think there's a time and place for it, certainly. But just taking it off of you again, it's not about you. It's about the people you're serving. If you can just keep that in your mind, because I know anybody watching this is going to be a heart-centered woman who wants to help and change the world. And so keep that at the forefront, keep your vision at the forefront. And I think it allows you to be real and vulnerable in a much bigger way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing about visibility and branding. And are there any last words that you'd like to share, maybe even around specifically understanding how to brand yourself, or like, the first steps to branding yourself, and any last words that you'd like to share with the audience?
Absolutely. So as far as branding yourself, it's totally my jam. I could talk on it all day, but I won't. What I will say is get clear on the 3 C's. So it's personal clarity, client clarity, and business clarity. Personal clarity is your vision, your why, how the world sees you, how you want to be seen, your story, what makes you different. Just getting super clear on those things. Mm-hmm. Client clarity is knowing exactly who you want to work with, like, what do they have in common? It might not be all women who are 25 to 30. It might be men and women who have certain values or need certain results in their life. Getting clear on how you can serve them and what problems you solve for them is essential. Knowing how to solve those problems in a way that is appealing is really important. And then with business clarity, it's, what are your brand values? What experience do you want to give people from the entire time they're working with you, from the time they find you online? And just your brand is not just your logo or your colors or your fonts. It's like a small piece of it. It's not just your photos. It's the overall experience that you give people and what sets you apart. So that's with branding. And, I like to leave people with a story because this really impacted me when I heard it. And nothing to do with people or branding, but it's about lions. So lions when they're hunting, they will actually put the older, weaker lion out front. And that's the lion that roars. So when the prey is coming, right, they hear this lion roaring and they run in the opposite direction. And that's where the lions are waiting to eat them. So if they would have went in the direction of the roar, which is scarier, right? If you go in the direction of your fears, that's the route you're meant to take. When we run from our fears and these things that are holding us back, we're going to miss the mark, and who knows what will happen.
That's really powerful. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in to hear about Shannon and her work and story. And we will see you all soon. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Rae.